Have you ever wondered why only one of the four Gospels talks about the wise men? Why Matthew, and only Matthew, records that iconic moment of gold, frankincense, and myrrh? Most people think this looks suspicious, like some kind of contradiction. But what if I told you it's actually one of the strongest signs that the Gospels are authentic historical sources? And stay with me, because there's a hidden detail in this story that almost nobody notices. Not even most Christians. The story of the wise men is one of the most famous in the New Testament, and yet only Matthew mentions it. Mark ignores it, Luke ignores it, John ignores it. So skeptics ask, if this really happened, why did only one writer know about it? It sounds like a fair question, until you understand how ancient biographies worked, and what the Gospel writers were trying to accomplish. Once you see that, the whole problem flips upside down. Imagine 4 eyewitnesses watching the same event from 4 different angles. Each person remembers different details, emphasizes different aspects, and highlights different meanings. That doesn't make any of them wrong. It actually makes them more credible. And that's exactly how historical writing worked in the 1st century. Each Gospel writer had a different audience, a different purpose, a different theme, and probably different sources. So the real question isn't, why did only Matthew include the wise men? The real question is, why would we expect all 4 writers to include the exact same stories? Ancient authors weren't trying to duplicate each other. They were complementing each other. And here's the key point. Matthew was writing primarily for Jewish readers, and the Jews were expecting a Messiah recognized as king, descended from David, acknowledged by the nations, and rejected by corrupt rulers. Now think about the story of the wise men. Foreigners from the East recognize Jesus as the King of the Jews. They follow a divine sign. They worship him. Meanwhile, Herod, the Jewish king, rejects him and tries to kill him. Matthew's message is deliberate and powerful. The nations recognize the Messiah, even when Israel's own leaders reject him. This theme runs through Matthew from beginning to end. So the story of the wise men fits perfectly into his purpose, but Luke had a different purpose. And that explains everything. Luke writes to a broader Greco-Roman audience. His focus is God lifting up the humble, the poor, the forgotten. That's why Luke doesn't tell the story of wealthy foreign scholars bringing gifts. Instead, he tells the story of the shepherds, the lowest class in Judea, being the first to hear the news. It's not that one story is true and the other is false. These are both true events serving different narrative purposes, different audiences, different emphases, complementary reports. But here's something even more interesting that skeptics rarely mention. If you were a Jewish writer in the 1st century, trying to invent a story that made your people look good, the last thing you would do is make pagan astrologers the heroes. Astrology was forbidden by Jewish law. Gentiles were considered unclean. Persia and Babylon were ancient enemies, and yet Matthew puts these characters at center stage as the ones who recognize Jesus. That's not how you write religious propaganda. That's what real history looks like. When a story is culturally awkward, counterintuitive, or makes your group look bad, historians take it more seriously, not less. No Jewish writer would invent a story where pagans get it right and Israel gets it wrong, unless he truly believed that's what happened. And now we reach the hidden detail almost no one notices. Matthew never calls them kings. He never says there were 3. He never gives their names. He never dramatizes their journey. The story is unbelievably simple. That is not the mark of legend. Legends grow with time, adding details, names, titles, embellishments. Matthew does the opposite. Yet he includes something subtle, something deeply meaningful. In the Jewish scriptures, especially Isaiah 60, there is a prophecy that nations will come to the light of the Messiah, and kings will bring gifts like gold and incense. Matthew isn't forcing a prophecy. He's showing that even the earliest moments of Jesus' life echo Israel's ancient expectations. This isn't mythology, it's fulfillment. So why does only Matthew mention the wise men? Because he had access to a unique tradition. Because his audience needed this event to understand the identity of Jesus. Because the story fits perfectly within Matthew's theme and purpose. Because Luke focused on different people for different reasons. And because the cultural awkwardness of the event actually strengthens its historical credibility. different accounts, different angles, same truth. Now I want to hear from you. If you had lived in the 1st century, which detail of this story would have surprised you the most? The star, the foreign visitors, or Herod's reaction? Tell me in the comments. I read them all. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.